Welcome to the real journey of the entrepreneur. The journey of any entrepreneur begins with a decision, then writing down your vision, then the execution of that vision. It is not for the faint of heart. It is for those who understand how powerful your mind is and that you can truly create the life that you deserve. It does require a unique formula that includes belief in yourself, a lot of consistency, connecting with an OG, a lot of tears, missing out on a few events and things, and taking a whole lot of risks that will allow you to see your vision and dream come to pass. This journey of the entrepreneur is from the perspective of a wonderful mother, a business owner, whose goal is to break generational barriers and normalize the process of wealth building and financial wellness through entrepreneurship, all while creating a social and give back along the way. I am sharing this journey with you and invite you to share this process with me. Let's do this together. Your decisions, but you have to feel comfortable to own it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I will always support you.
Thank you.
Well, hey, good people. We are back. We are back for another episode of the journey of the entrepreneur. So now I always seek out the most amazing, dopest entrepreneurs. But today, this one is going to blow you way out the park. So before I get to our guests, I am going to just say, hey, welcome to the journey of the entrepreneur. This is Anita Pierce. I am the owner of 11375, which is a MWBE certified business consultancy that helps other small businesses with foundational education. I have the opportunity to be able to coach and support businesses at all levels to help them to grow and scale. So if you are interested in taking advantage of some of our services, please check us out at 11375.com. We are on all of the social platforms, so please feel free to reach out to us there. So without further ado, I want to introduce a very, very dope, amazing human. Barry Cooper, the man, the educator, the author, the dad, who has been organizing and supporting young men of color for a number of years. Mr. Cooper has recently developed and established the Bro Experience Foundation, which was established in 2020 to expand the scope of all the transformational work that he's doing, specifically targeting young men of color. So in those spaces, he has a nonprofit, he is a coach, an educator, an author. We are going to really unpack, what that experience looks like for him, and more. But before we bring him on, we are actually going to share just a little bit of background about, some of the work that he and his team is embarking on. Stay tuned to this video.
And I never really talked about this. I guess it's still on my little dark cloud that follows me every once in a while. But how I arrived to this space is kind of like unorthodox. Most people would look and see the work that I'm doing and the work that I've done over the last 15 years and just assume that I really took the traditional route of like making it through high school and going to a good college and getting my doctorate or my PhD or my master's, and that is far from the case. I struggled in school for a long time. In fact, I didn't even graduate high school on time. I had to get my GED. But through that process of like my early 20s, kind of like being in the community, once owning my own barbershop when I was like 21, I had a deep insight and I had a front row seat to realize that I wasn't the only man of color in my community who was struggling personally the way I was. And oftentimes, we are told that, in order for us to experience success, we have to be good at something. And I tried to be good at a lot of different things, but I still was finding that I would always hit a roadblock. And then I was introduced to transformational education. And then I was able to learn how to become a facilitator of transformational education. And that changed my life. And transformational education is really about who you are, your character, how you develop it as a person, so that way the things that you want in life, whether it's a skill that you have or even an opportunity that you want to get, you can foster those things because your character is big. And then that's when success really started to happen for me. And, over the years, I taught in the Department of Education. I've had the privilege of working in ACS, the Department of Correction, the Department of Probation. And a lot of people will be like, wow, you're this anomaly. And it was just really because I learned the art of self. I learned how to show up in a way that was authentic, that was brave, and that was connected. And that's why it's the three keys to the organization. I want young men, or I want people to realize that I am no different than you. I just realize that I need to be me in every space that I operate or I dwell in, so that way opportunities will just fall at my feet. Um, and that's how I arrived. I'm just a typical young man from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Grew up here all of my life, and I had a lot of the same struggles. I had my first child when I was 15, my second child when I was 21, and some people probably would have counted me out years ago, or I probably would have been one of the statistics that they write about so often. And I didn't allow that to define me, because I redefine myself so that way I can gain the opportunities that I deserve.
So, without further introduction, I want to welcome to the real journey of the entrepreneur, the man behind the video, Mr. Barry Cooper. Hey, Barry.
Hey, what's going on? Sis, how are
How
you?
are you?
I'm
You
good.
know
I'm
what?
well.
That was a great video, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit more about this whole idea about the man behind Mr. Barry Cooper, aka Coach Coop.
So, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. Definitely long overdue, this connection. But Barry Cooper, aka Coach Coop, is someone who is deeply passionate about around the vision of developing young men of color, specifically. And the reason why is because I am them and they are me. And when you think about the development of community, in black and brown communities in particular, the reason why I believe we struggle with what one would probably consider advancement is because the notion and the portrayals of young men of color is always tainted by someone else's opinions of them. And we've never been really given the ability to have our own say and our own voice and our own journey, because we have been inundated with this idea that one, we need to become a man before we understand boyhood.
Mm.
And then on top of that, as these men, we are only as good as what we can provide for others. And being that boy who had to have his boyhood diminished, I've always had a lot of resentment and rejection towards systems and things like that. So, you know, my legacy now is I wanted to leave a space where young men of color can untap that potential that lies deep within them, so that way the communities that they dwell can benefit from it. and that's what I've been doing for all of my life, even before I knew I was actually doing it. And now that I'm conscious of it, that's what I want to leave. That's what I want to leave this earth with doing, and that's just creating spaces for young men.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out which way where I'm gonna go because all of it is exciting. Um, so you started in 2020 in the middle, officially formally the bro experience in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah, I guess you want me to explain that, right?
Yes.
As crazy as crazy as it seems, what happened was it really was the pandemic that catapulted me into saying like, well, what are you going to do, right? Because I was really comfortable with going out into different spaces, facilitating, impacting, and leaving. Right?
Mm,
I just was like, yo, this is amazing. When I tapped into the work, I like really gravitated to that. And the pandemic happened. Everybody has to shift business models, and I distinctly remember not truly having access to my young people. And we had to develop this Zoom kind of like world, and everybody had to navigate through that, and they were missing that space that we provided. So the question came to me and was just like, well, like, all right, Barry, are you gonna just leave this earth as like this dope facilitator and not be responsible for creating your own platform and your own space and leaving legacy in a way that can kind of like operate beyond you? Um, and I just kind of like sat down. I literally wrote out the pros and cons because I had a very negative viewpoint on organizational development, specifically around nonprofit work. And after I did the pros and cons, what I realized is that I want to create institution. I want to be a part of creating institution. I don't just want to move people into positive directions. I want to create positive spaces. So that's how we were able to formulate the Bro Experience Foundation. So the Bro Experience is kind of like rooted in different program areas of different things that I've done throughout the years, dealing with different age groups. So we have Little Bro Summer Camp, Bro X, which is the Race of Past program. That's a high school based program. And then we have what we're building out called the Bro Space, and we call it the Bro Space Project now. So all three of those components right now are the very nucleus and core of what the Bro experience is. And if you can kind of like think about Little Bro Summer Camp, that is for elementary age, middle school young men. Bro X is for high school boys from ninth grade up. And then the Bro Space is really led by 16 or 20 displaced young men in our city. All three of those nucleus kind of like adds up to defeating or diminishing the school to prison pipeline. So that's how I was able to kind of like put that together and formulate the organization into what we have and what we're building to now. So the B, R, and the O stands for Brothers Redefining Opportunity, and that's where the transformational work comes in. So like that's it in a nutshell. I know it was probably crazy as hell to start a nonprofit in the midst of the pandemic, but I think now that I'm thinking about it and I'm saying it out loud to you, Anita, one of the things that I realized is that we were all on pause for a minute. So although the world had kind of stopped, people's thought process and their ability to kind of like sit down and build out framework get stopped. So for me personally, that was the right time for me to kind of like really look at what it was that I was doing and then kind of like put all of these buckets together to create this entity and platform. So I needed that. It was amazing. I was frustrated, but it allowed me to manifest this thing that is like really moving really fast. So I'm excited.
And salute to you for jumping, right? Because oftentimes as entrepreneurs, we have like this huge self-doubt, for
Mm-hmm.
whatever, we have the self-doubt within our own ability. So salute to you for actually jumping in the midst of chaos, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you some business questions, right? Because I believe and know that nonprofits are businesses. So, would you be able to share what your startup costs as a nonprofit look like?
So yeah, so funny enough, it doesn't cost that much to start a nonprofit, right? Like you can start a nonprofit with what, maybe a couple of $100s, right? But the startup cost to like start the nonprofit and get the systems going, I would say I spent. Cause now I'm thinking about something that happened through the process, a gap that I had. But I would say so I'm gonna answer that question by telling a story, and I
Please
don't
do.
want to tell the whole story because I don't want to put that another individual on like blast, right? Because that's not the point of it. But what I will say to people who haven't taken that leap or that jump yet, when you are taking the leap and the jump, make sure that you get support, but more than getting support from someone who understands and knows what they are talking about and doing, make sure you vet the people. More or a lot of times as entrepreneurs when we first started out, even though I took the jump, there was a lot of fears and considerations that I had around it. So I went with who I knew and I went with like safety, right? And that safety cost me about $11,000 that I didn't have to spend at all. And if I was going to spend that 11,000, which I was like in my mind intently trying to like say like I'm going to invest this to get the organization really operating, it was a waste of money because I went with the safety bet, right, instead of the qualified. And then knowing if that person was qualified, I needed to like see their work and vet them because that is that is so important to your development. So the cost of it varies based on who you are like having involved in the process. But I will say this, aside from what I just mentioned, when you're approaching this work, especially of developing a nonprofit, go for people who understand nonprofit development. So if they cost 5,000, 6,000, if it takes you a year or 2 years to formalize the business structure of the nonprofit, take those 2 years and don't worry about the fact that you're not actually doing programming. Because what we do as know, black entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs of color, we think more about like doing the work. So we run out and doing the work. But if you're a business owner, this is something that I'm recently coming of age to. It's like you got to work on the business, not in the business. And when you're working on the business, that means you need to work on the systems to make sure that the business functions. Because if you don't, you will be spending way more than $11,000 that I felt like went down the drain um, throughout this process. So it just really depends, Anita, just to sum that all up. The amount of it varies, but the time you put into, which may not have a dollar value to it, but it can save you money. The time you put into doing your research on the organization or what it is that you're trying to like formulate is way more valuable than how much you actually have to spend on making sure that the formalities come together.
So, first of all, salute to you, right, for recognizing the importance of having business systems even within a nonprofit organization because the structure is still a business.
Yes.
Boom. Don't be surprised. It is still, you still have to have a phone system. You still have to have a project management system. You still have to have a system to manage your team, right?
Yep.
Whatever that is, manage your calendar. And so all of those things cost money. And so when you're first starting, again, if you've been paying attention to what we've been discussing, you've met a number of different entrepreneurs that are doing really amazing things in different spaces. And the one thing that remains consistent is systems.
Yep.
Systems.
Yep. So important.
And so in deepening that, right? So not only do you have the nonprofit, you are an author, you are a dad. So I'm curious, right? Because I'm gonna go back to the statement. Um, about what you mentioned about what we do as businesses of color. We just kind of want to do, and not really, pull up and plan. So I want to pause that for a second, but I want to talk about how do you manage this, like, being a dad. And if you all have not seen, you know, this new addition to the family, please make sure that you follow the Bro
Mhm.
Experience and check out them on thebroexperience.org, and you will see why my ovaries be jumping.
So yeah, so definitely baby August, who Anita's referring to as my 1 year old son. I'm a father of three. I have an eldest son, a male, he's 24 in the military, daughter Chase, she's 16, and then the new addition. But to answer the question, and it goes back to that what you mentioned about systems, is like managing your calendar, yo. Like you can't just wake up as especially as a nonprofit leader and think that you're going to just allow life to do life. Like you have to manage life. And you have to be realistic about your time. You have to be okay with like not doing everything all in the 24 hours that you get. But I rely heavily on my calendar and really making sure that I'm clear about it. I think about it weekly. I think about it daily. Um, and I try my best to plan as much as possible. Now, I'm not perfect at it, but what gives me the success that I have is that I plan everything, even when it comes to my family time. You know, at 8:45 p.m. or 8 o'clock p.m., there's a calendar that says Cooper Family Time, where I'm shutting off as much as I possibly can so that when I get in the house, I can spend the last 3 to 4 hours with my family if I have like a very grueling work day. Um, Saturdays and Sundays, I do my absolute best to spend time with my children. Um, and because I have such a cool job, I'm privileged with the ability to bring my children into my world, but not everybody has that, right? So you got to really make sure that you put everything that's important to you, every aspect of who you are as this executive, as this parent, as this human being, you have to calendar that and put it on a schedule so that that way you can live 100%. Now, I don't necessarily believe in balance, but I do believe in time. And I do believe that you can put the time in places that you want, that you say are important to you, so that way you're not missing out on anything. Now, time varies, right? You might do things differently, but as long as you got time, you can at some point get back to what it is that you had to put off. But it's all about being intentional and conscious about the calendar that you set for yourself. And if you have multiple calendars, like I have like 5 or 6 calendars to support different agencies, I combine all of them, right? Like they're all intertwined with one another. Where when I wake up, I see a master list. I know what's what. I know who's who. I know where. If sometimes because things happen, there's an overlap. I have to make a decision. I reach out to those individuals, say, hey, it's an overlap. I gotta move, and then I look at my calendar and see what best works. So, but I wouldn't be able to do that if I did not have a calendar. It's very, very important.
And not to be overlooked. It's I agree. I'm calendar driven, and especially these days, when you are involved and make the choice to be involved in multiple things, it's definitely important to have it condensed into a master list that you mentioned. So I totally agree about that. And so I want to do a double back about how businesses of color function, right? We obviously happen to be, amazing, beautiful brown souls, I believe. And so when we're in business, right? What are some of the things that you yourself have seen or have experienced personally as just being a business owner, um, that we want to talk about?
Um, well, I'll bring up something. It's like when we do nonprofit work in this nonprofit structure, we operate with it from a poor or poverty mindset. It is a business structure. That's all it is. It's a tool that functions in a way where the state government can formulate your taxes and you can receive funds or get grants and contracts to provide a service. Any other service job that's not a nonprofit, they just have a similar, I mean, they just have a different tax structure and how they operate their business and how they receive funds and how they pay taxes. So because we're doing social impact work, we think that we are supposed to approach it from this mindset of like free. I'm a businessman. My business is social impact. So when I go into doing the business, I don't go into it just kind of like, oh, I want to do things for free. I go in it from a standpoint of like, okay, well, how am I going to provide the best service that people want to pay for it? And then how do I navigate healthy relationships with individuals who may have access to more resources so I can get those resources so I can provide it to the people who I'm providing services for. So I'm very clear in that, but what I've experienced is that people take on contracts or they do certain things because they want to just kind of like they think about doing the work first and they don't think about both at the same time. And I think that is super important. You have to think about your business, the operations, and the structure of the business while thinking about the development and the impact that you are giving to the people that you are serving in social impact. We tend to either think one or the other, right? So you might see an organization that you know ain't doing no work, but their CEO is making like $500,000 a year, and you pissed off at that. The reason why you're mad is because you on the flip side of the end of the spectrum where you're like, well, I care about the people and I want to go out and do the work, and it's just like, but you only could do but so much. You only good enough to like push your organization a 2 block radius. Where if you was to have both mindsets and cultivate both, now you can not only be able to make money where you can take care of yourself and your family, but then you also have enough resources to actually expand past the neighborhood that you're in. So I'm very clear going into the work with the bro experience is that from the door, I see my ending, or I see my big picture, not my ending, right? Like I want to create institutions, and in order for me to create institution, the organization has to be operating at least a $20 million budget every single year. In that $20 million, when I get to that 20 million, myself or whoever is the CEO of the organization at that time needs to be making high six figures, right? Every operational leader that I have, they need to be making money, and every line tab needs to be making money because when your line and your front line is taken care of, then the community is taken care of. So that's how I think about it, and that's a for-profit business approach. So I think that's what I'm learning. I could do both, and I don't have to be the pauper standing on the corner saying that I'm supporting people. So that's what I've learned.
Yay! So I am listening, and there was a couple of things I wanted to follow up on, right? So the one thing that you mentioned was about um, really growing and scaling your business, right? And so again, going back to having, systems in place in order for you to get there. What are some of the challenges right now that you're experiencing to get to that 20 mm area that you want to get to?
Yeah, it's and I think that most black organizational leaders probably deal with this, right? Like not having seed funding to help you scale in the way that you envision. So oftentimes, so for example, within from the time point of from June 2021 to current date, from just donations, like donors, we have been able to, as an organization, we've been able to garner about $14,000, right? And that's phenomenal. Like we got recurring donors, so we've been able to sustain small programmatic things over the year with this funding. But in the same breath, we have been allocated funding from the state and the city, right? Elected officials, and also contracts from schools. The same time that we've been raising the money, those contracts have been allocated to us, right? But because we don't have a significant amount that covers the allocated funding that is given to us, we can't expand past the $14,000. So we may have $50,000 or $60,000 allocated, but because that funding is not coming down fast enough, there's a lot of bureaucracy around that funding. It puts us in a position where we only able to serve 2 blocks, right? So I think that the challenge is like, how do we, one, now raise question about the system of how contracts and grants are provided, and then two, how do we find fiscal conduits who have the resources to give us a on the ground organization like the Broad Experience the funding, because they know that we have funding allocated. So it's hard for us to really push past the demo, like where we are and what we do, because we have the funding allocated, but we don't have the resources at hand. So that's kind of like been really frustrating, um, and something that I'm really trying to circumvent, and things that I raise in a lot of these high level meetings that I'm privileged to be in with different individuals in the city and in the state. I know that it will take time, but it's definitely a tough thing, because what it breeds, Anita, is like it breeds like nervousness. I know I got a program idea, or I know I want to expand the program, and then I don't do it because I'm like, I know I don't have that resources at hand. So now I'm thinking small, right? So I'm not able to like really move in my big picture. I'm only trying to take small bites out of it. And if I'm operating from that level of fear, then I know that I'm not really bringing the best program that I know that the organization can. So that's been a real Achilles heel for me, in the development of the organization. Like, how are these resources allocated? Because we are organizations of color who really start this thing based on the fire in our souls and not the green in our bank account.
Right.
If that makes sense.
And I want to add, my business is not a nonprofit, but I experienced some of what you are mentioning about the delay in receiving resources as an MWBE certified business. And I have to tell you, that was an eye-opening experience in terms of my business financial threshold. So within my bank accounts, I have a certain threshold that once I start to dip, it becomes like want. You need to kind of look
Hmm.
at where we're getting other resources from. And I know for me, what I had to do recently was to think about lines of credit, maybe looking at some business loans, which I wasn't really like thinking about. But I had to like tweak, to your point about mindset, about, you know, really not really thinking from a poverty mindset, but really just tweaking about how I do business, right? It's now about leveraging other resources. What does that look like for the business overall, right? Cash is really king, queen these days. So you want to try to make sure that at least I'm sustaining, at least a cushion, right? While I am, utilizing these in between resources that have helped me to kind of move forward. Because I understand that level of like, man, I gotta pay somebody, but something else is not coming in. And that's not, you don't want that. You don't want to deal with somebody else's, you want to support their issues, but you don't want that weight on you. In
Yeah.
terms of like funding. Oh, how they gonna eat? How they gonna pay their resources when your source is not, coming through, which is annoying. Like
Yeah.
it's,
So annoying.
it's
So
annoying.
so
Like
so so annoying.
it's just, yeah, it's not responsible. So it is up to us as you know business heads of our organization to really come up with, along with our team, in your instance a board of directors, in my instance a board of directors, but in a sense of like my OGs that I'm talking to, like, listen, hey, I don't know what to do. Like, can you help me come up with, a solution, or I'm thinking about this. And then the other thing that I've been doing, Barry, is just I've been just taking some risks.
Yeah.
Like just been
Yeah.
jumping, I just been jumping and I just been jumping because sometimes that fear,
Yeah.
it keeps you it's like weight on your feet.
Yeah, no, I definitely share the same sentiment. So like that bro space project that I talk about, like that is the actual space that I want. But in order for
Mhm,
me to get a space, the organization needs to be pulling in at least $10,000 a month. That's at least, right? Because we're gonna have rental or we're gonna have like a lease that we have to pay, and we want to be able to still pay staff so that we have energy in the space. We don't bring in $10,000 a month. So I had to take a risk and just jump out and co-locate in the space, um, and really not be, beholden to what is not right now, but
mhm.
taking that risk because I know what is to come. So yeah, we actually are building that space out. I have like a small budget for it, and it's all about now like showing the possibility of what this project can be because I know where I want to take the big picture. So, yeah, because when you do take the risk, to your point, the reward can be, 10 times more, way more than what you even anticipated. So yeah, I'm at that juncture right now with one of the plans that we have.
And that's exciting. So for all of those entrepreneurs, like we're telling you to take risks. I think ours were more so like calculated risks. We
Yeah,
jump, but it was more like, all right, I got this budget, I can do this with that. It's not the grand scheme of things, but you learn how to build, you know, from that specific block,
yeah,
brick, and then you move on. Because from my recent experience, I am still joyful, right?
yep,
Still joyful. And now I'm like, oh, okay, I have like a little proof of concept and I'm gonna repackage it and now I'm gonna sell it to a couple of sponsors and they're gonna invest in it because you know what? I believe in myself enough now that I'm like, you know,
yeah, yeah.
that's
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 important, right? Like those calculated risks is the proof of concept. And this is another thing we have to get into doing the proof of concept. You might know that you need a $30 million budget, but I've never operated 20 or $30 million before. So in my mind, I'm like, I think I can, but I need to like be able to learn how to utilize the smaller funding, utilize the spaces that I have right now because I know that it's going to grow. So even if it's one individual that you supported intentionally and you've seen growth and the social impact work that we do, that still is worth its weight in gold. Even if you know that you wanna raise money to serve 20 young people or whatever it is that you want to do, if you raise a third of that and you only could serve five entities, that's still something, right? Like it may not be what you thought about, but it is within what you're thinking. So that was a line right there. It may not be what you thought about, but it is in line with what you're thinking. So like be okay with working with tools that you have, um, because it's gonna grow, it's gonna get better.
and I say it has no option but not to.
Hmm.
The option is, it's going that way in a way that we closer to our dreams. Um, and that is what keeps me going. And I want to also share, right? So during this process of entrepreneurship, we like to highlight, both the ebbs and the flows, right? And the other thing that I also want to ask is how do you manage your overall wellness, right? What does that look like
Hmm.
for you? Because you and I have had conversations where we be like, yo, it's hard.
Hmm.
Like it don't fit, it don't this what I signed up for, and then but it doesn't last always. Like how do you like what do you do for your self-care?
Yeah, so first, definitely Saturday and Sundays, I definitely try to chill, sit, reflect. Um, every morning because I'm still an early riser, no matter how late I sleep. But my ritual is that I wake up, I do kind of like reflection, gratitude things. I sit, I drink tea in front of my window, and I try to like do some forms of meditation, mindful meditation. And then Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I go to the gym. Right, I have a trainer. And it's funny because I don't go to the gym to lose weight. I just literally go to the gym to like take my mind off of things for the hour that I'm there with my trainer. We do boxing and cardio and weight training, but I also do it to feel good. Right?
Mhm.
There's a physical euphoria that happens to my body for me that I'm tapped into. That when I walk out of the gym, I'm walking with a different pep, and then I feel like I'm ready to start my day on the days that I do it. Um, so that's kind of like what I do, and I really on Sundays try my best to just relax, watch television, watch my favorite shows, and not think about things that I have to do for the week. Like Monday through Friday, on Friday like Friday evenings, I plan out my week for the next week, and Saturday and Sundays I just relax. So that's how I've been basically, trying to handle my self care.
So you really not a myth behind a man. You like a real man. Like you just do things that are really important to your growth and your development and caring and showing love for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty dope and amazing. So you wanna know something? We at the end of our interview.
Wow. I hope I gave some good jewels.
No,
You
you're about
know.
to. You're about to. You're about to. So,
Okay. Okay.
in wrapping up, right? So you are a nonprofit executive, right? You are also a for-profit executive. You're an author. You are Barry Cooper is a brand, right? So, what are some at least three realistic tips that you can offer if someone was thinking about, you know, what I want to do some of the things that Barry Cooper is doing. What can you offer?
So the first thing that I would tell people, if it's in alignment with what I do, my social impact work is developing humans, um, is so in my journey, like the Barry Cooper that you're speaking to now, Anita, like I was intentional 15 years ago, around like what I wanted to create in the world, and I broke my time up in 5 year increments,
Mm,
where it was like my first 5 years was I wanted to become a household name, and I wanted people to wonder, like, well, can I get in contact with this Barry Cooper? Like, I became a necessity when it came down to the development of young men of color, and that involved me kind of like doing sessions and workshops, volunteering places, really getting my name out there. And as I approached the second leg of this 15-year process, my next 5 years, which was intentional, was around me dropping the book, right? Me becoming that published author, right? So that way I have something documented that people can have a collection of my ideas and thoughts around one specific social thing that people were going through. And then I strengthened my connections and my network through the work that I was doing. And and funny enough, I'm in the third phase of the 15. Now I'm building platform.
mm,
Um, and through this platform, what I want to do is create those systems that we talk about, where now my ideas and my work are living, even if I'm not actually the person that's facilitating. It's operating even if I'm not the person who may have thought of the concept and the idea, because I create these systems that other people who I can now bring into this situation can help function and make happen, right? Like I'm excited that I was able to hire a program coordinator now. So I had a meeting with my program coordinator for this bro space project. That's an exciting thing because now I'm taking my ideas, giving it to someone who now makes sure and be the gatekeeper of this concept and this idea to make sure it works. So in my next 5 years, what I envision happening is that all of our program areas will be operating in a full function, and we will have the ability to open up our own transformational space driven by young men of color. So I think that that's one aspect. Like really time yourself, really know where you are, right? Like you may see where you're gonna be, but you're not there yet. So respect the process and build yourself and become an expert in what it is that you're doing. Um, and I think the other aspect is like be okay with not knowing. Be okay with getting those lessons through the process of your development at every level. And then the third one is if you get to a point where, and this is something that I just learned recently, being this young executive, but when you get to that point, be intentional about what you're development and developing in that as well. I just recently learned that you got to work on the organization, or you got to work on the business instead of being in the business, and that was profound to me because now it gives me the ability to have the confidence that I'm not necessarily in front of young people all the time, but I'm pouring into the people who are in front of them, and then I'm making sure that their ecosystem is well taken care of, so that way they can take care of others. And that's what makes me strong because when people think of Barry Cooper or they think about the bro experience, they don't necessarily think about the money that I make, but they think about like, damn, every time I see this guy, he's growing, right? And I think that that's what inspired people more, which they give me. It opens up more possibilities and opportunities for me because they see my consistency, and that is the important thing, in my opinion.
And your opinion is valid, right? Like,
Mhm.
you know, why wouldn't we care about your opinion? This is the dream that you're building, right? And we are excited to be peeking in and watching this amazing journey that's happening. So, I have what I call the fun rapid fire questions, right? The one word answers. You still there, Coach Coop, or did I lose you? I think I may have lost them just when it was getting good. Yeah, so I am really, really, really excited, right? Because when we have amazing individuals who are willing to jump on and to like share and like to, to be oh, looks like we got Coach Coop back. Hey, Coach Coop.
Yeah, I don't know what just happened. It was like crazy.
So we are wrapping up, right? So usually when I wrap up the show, I do these rapid fire one word answers to
Okay.
questions. Ready? You
Yep, I'm
ready?
ready.
You ready?
Yep.
What is your favorite borough?
Brooklyn.
There we go. We back at it. Brooklyn
Mm-hmm.
all day.
Brooklyn all
So,
day.
what do you appreciate more, pizzas or burgers?
Ooh, pizza.
Smoothies or ice cream?
Come on, Nita, don't do that. Uh, Ice cream.
Who's the favorite person in your house?
Oh, the favorite person in my house is me.
And in 3 years, what change would you like to see within the community that you're serving? And this one is doesn't have to be one word. I know this one could be like a little bit of a draw. So in 3 years, what will change within the community that you are serving?
3 years, I want to see, it's two words, more community stewardship.
Mm. What is the legacy that you would like to leave for your family?
The legacy that I want to leave for my family is rooted in everything that I think of, and it's not one word, but it's actually three. I want to leave values of authenticity, bravery, and connection in my family. Um, I want my family to kind of like lean on those ideas, because with those ideas you will build abundance.
All good stuff. Now, where can we find you? On
Yeah, so you
social
can
media?
find me. You can find me. My social media handles. My Instagram. My personal Instagram is Coach Coop underscore. The organization's Instagram is at the Bro Experience underscore. That's on Facebook and on Instagram. And then the website www.thebroexperience.org. That's www.thebroexperience.org, and that's where people can find me.
All right. Coach Coop, I appreciate you.
Thank you. I
I
appreciate you as well.
appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to interview with the journey of the entrepreneur. And I'm going to warn you all, when you go onto the Bro Experience, there is this beautiful baby that has been co-created by Coach Coop and his wife. And I'm going to tell you, it makes me want to have another one. So you've been warned, and make
The
sure that
war.
you donate to the Bro Experience.
Yes.
Definitely thinking about supporting ways to support the Bro Experience, because this is impactful work that's being done within the community. And we're not just saying that just because. If you check out the website, you'll see, video testimonials of, what the work that has been done and is currently happening within the Bro Experience. So please make sure donations are needed and necessary to support the work and to continue work of this organization. So the Bro Experience. Thank you so much, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for everybody who tuned in and is going to listen. Is going to listen. Support my sister Anita and her great broadcast. Share it. Share it. Share it. Share it. And thank you.
All right then. Bye bye, Mr. Cooper. Bye bye.
Later, y'all. Peace.
So, again, we are super excited with having, a variety of different entrepreneurs that join the real journey of the entrepreneur. This specific organization is the Bro Experience, that really focuses and targeted on men of color, right? Young men of color specifically, who will eventually grow up to be men. And so check out the broexperience.org. It is a way that if you want to provide donations that are going directly to individuals and resources and programs, this is an organization that you can check out. So I want to, as we're wrapping up, again, think about some of the ways which we can share resources. Just wanted to show again that there are a number of resources that you can take advantage of within, as business owners. There's a number of chambers of commerce that, if you are looking to connect, gain business resources, this is one of the ways, as an entry point, that you can come in and get experience and connections as well. But if you are also looking to work with my organization, we do provide business consultation. As I mentioned, the business is certified as a MWBE certified business consultancy with New York State and also with New York City. And so if you want some pretty amazing content and also project management work, please feel free to reach out to us. Our information is scrolling down at the bottom. We are on all of the social media platforms, and we look forward to working with you really soon. So, on that note, don't forget about the Bro Experience. Make sure that you check them out, and that you're really, connecting the dots. Thank you so much for joining the journey of the entrepreneur. We look forward to connecting with you soon. Bye bye.